assumed at around 8%. So now if you have a portfolio which has got an asset allocation of 75% on fixed income products and 25% on equity or equity related products, then after 5 years, the return on this side kind of a portfolio, 100 rupees will become 154. 100 rupees will become 240 after 10 years. It will become 591 after 20 years. And after 30 years, it will become 1504 rupees. Whereas, if a similar kind of investment, if you make 75% as equity and 25% as fixed income, the return in 5 years from 154 will jump to 169 on 100 rupee, and the return from 240 will become 287 over 10 years. But look at what happens in 30 years. The 1504 will become 2499 or almost 2500 rupees. So there is almost a 75% increase over a period of 30 years due to just the change of asset allocation. So here the equity investments are 75% and the debt is 25%. Now again, it has to be superimposed on the risk appetite, on various risk appetite factors like your age, your income. So the young people, they can afford, because they have more number of years ahead of them to take a little volatility risk. So therefore they can invest higher portfolio in equity related and lower portfolio in debt. And whereas it is the reverse for the people who have who are nearing their financial goals. So there the asset allocation has to be reversed. It has to be more in debt and less in equity. So accordingly, a person has to decide on the asset allocation, and accordingly the portfolio asset allocation, as we had mentioned, that आपको हर समय मॉनिटर करते रहना चाहिए, आपको रीएडजस्ट करते रहना चाहिए अपने पोर्टफोलियो को. सो एज द एज फैक्टर और एज वी प्रोग्रेस इनटू द portfolio, therefore the readjustment is required, and somewhere you have to book profit, somewhere you have to reinvest. So those kind of things need to happen, and asset allocation, which is one of the biggest drivers for your return or your long-term return, that needs to keep changing in terms of the percentage allocations. So this is again one of the biggest aspects which we need to know and which we need to have a clear idea about, which is the compounding. So how long should I stay invested? And if you can, forever. This is said by somebody, if you want to stay, even if you stay forever invested, you will make huge amount of wealth. The magic of compounding is the key to creating wealth. So Albert Einstein had one point of time had said, compound interest is the eighth wonder in the world. He who understands it earns it. He who doesn't pays it. So a person who doesn't know how the compounding works, he will end up paying compound interest as penal interest, maybe on a bank default. But he who understands it, he will earn compound interest on his income or investments. So this is just a small little illustration. You would have probably seen or read a story also. When a person, he said that on every chessboard of 64 squares, so he'll put one grain on the first, and he'll double it in the second, he'll double it in the third, and like that. So he ended up, his whole kingdom was sold. So this is again one example. So what if I am willing to sell my car for INR 1 rupee, and only with the condition to pay double the amount the next day for a month? So that 1 rupee, by just compounding it, it becomes double the next day, it becomes double the next day, and on the fourth day it becomes 8 rupees, on the fifth day it becomes 16 rupees, and just look at what happens. So it becomes 214 crore rupees by the end of the month, which is on the 31st day. So just imagine the kind of impact the compounding makes. So compounding is one aspect which we need to understand, which we need to clearly know at the back of our mind, that this is the role which the compounding plays. So illustration of having invested INR 1000 rupees through SIP route in Nifty over the periods. So as I had spoken about that, investing in mutual funds is one of the, good, or this is one of the means of investment, and which is very useful and which is very effective, and world over it is one of the most favorite investment instruments. So regular savings can be achieved through a process or through a instrument which is available in the market, which is called SIP, which is called systematic investment plan. Systematic because systematically every month, you give a mandate to a mutual fund company, and the mutual fund then requests the mandate to be served from your bank on a monthly basis on a fixed date, and you keep on investing on a monthly basis a fixed amount which you have decided in a particular mutual fund scheme. So what happens, what is the kind of growth? This is a historical thing which has happened till if you invested in a Nifty, or Nifty is what? It is a Nifty which is the one of the market indices, and if you had invested, say, for the last 5 years, 1,000 rupees in a Nifty index fund or a Nifty mutual fund, then this 1,000 rupees investment in the last 5 years, you would have invested 60,000 rupees, but it would have grown to 83,991 rupees, and over the 10 years there would have been a 1.9 times growth. From 1,20,000 invested would have become 2,23,000, and in 15 years, 1,18,000, 15 years back. So 1,80,000 in over the last 180 months, it would have grown to 4,35,000, almost 2.4 times growth. So this is the impact, or this is just an indicator of what would have happened if you had invested in a Nifty index fund. Very simple. This is one of the most conservative and non-mutual fund fund managers intervention funds. So this is one fund which is just an indicator of how your investment would have performed. Now, compounding. So it works both ways. So compounding is also about the rate at which the compounding happens. It is also about the time for which the compounding is happening. How many times the compounding happening, and how much time the amount gets compounded. So the cost of delay may cost more dearly, and even a significant jump in the amount. So typically what we are saying is that ideally, if you want to, let's say, plan for your retirement, say, so if for ideally for a 30-year retirement, you should plan for 30 years. So if one would have invested, say, 10 lakh rupees 30 years before, and the amount of corpus, let's say the rate of return assumed at 12%, he would have received almost 3 crore rupees, 2 crore 99 lakh 59,922. So if he had delayed his 10 lakh rupees investment by 5 years, so if he had given only 25 years for his money to grow, then this 10 lakhs would grow to only 1 crore 70 lakhs. So therefore, there is a shortfall to achieving his goal by 43%, just because he delayed his investment, his initial investment of 10 lakh rupees. Similarly, a 10-year delay of investing the same amount of 10 lakhs, it would have cost him a shortfall in achieving his goal by 68%. So this is what shows that the more time you give to the compounding, the better is the return. So it is best to start early so that you have a much better compounding impact, and the money grows to a much larger extent over the years. Now similarly, even if you double, for example, this after the 10-year delay, even if you double your investment, say from 10 lakhs, you have doubled it to 20 lakhs, even then in achieving your goal at the maturity, you will be having a shortfall of almost 36%. And even if you triple your amount, even then there will be a shortfall of, say, 3%. So The reason is that you gave your money less time to compound. So the time in the market is important and not timing the market. So that helps to create the long-term wealth. So many of you would have seen some of the TV advertisements also that for the equity investment, it is not very important to time the market. For timing the market, we have a beautiful product which is called the SIP. But it is more important to have spend more time in the market. That means you need to stay invested for a longer time horizon. So the longer you stay invested in the market, the better would be the return and the better would be the compounding. So this is again one of the good slides about wishful thinking. If we just wish and we feel that time is irrelevant, there is a very, very subjective scope, there are no efforts to financial planning, then the achievement of your financial goals, the likelihood is very low. But if you have a goal-based investment, if you have a fixed time horizon, as I had mentioned, you have a specific amount in mind, you have a dedicated plan for that, then the likelihood of achievement is very high. So stop dreaming, start doing. A goal without plans and action is simply a wish. So thumb rules for financial planning. So again, as I had mentioned earlier also, set up the financial goal either by yourself or with the help of a financial planner. Collate all the relevant data required to set up a plan. Data can include your financial objectives, your annual income, spending estimates, loans taken, the expected rate of return in different asset classes, so asset allocation, etc. And then analyze the data which is collected to find out your true financial position and appropriate financial avenues. Develop a financial plan taking into account the goals to achieve the current means. The plan will help you draft realistic goals and how to achieve them. Put the plan in action, that is execution. Monitor and review the plan regularly and make prudent decisions regarding your money. If required, plan should be tweaked. It should be made relevant to your current financial situation, etc. And the required changes may be made. Now, what is the ideal amount to invest? Honestly, it depends on your personal profile, but there can be a small thumb rule. Initially, let's say when there are no liabilities, there are no dependents, a person is single and he has just started his career, started his job, and he's doing fairly good. After meeting his current needs or, spending needs, maybe on the rent, maybe on the car, on the fuel, or on the food, etc., he should ideally spend 70% of his salary and save and set aside for future needs, say about 30%. And once, he's got a family, he's got liabilities, he's got dependents, then he should spend for the current needs, say around 85%. At least 15% should be set aside for his future needs. So performance of various asset classes. This is something just as a illustration of some of the asset classes, how they have performed over the years. And these are some of the most popular asset classes ranging from the sovereign guaranteed asset classes like your PPF, your national savings certificate, your senior citizen saving schemes, bank deposits, which are all your PSU banks and the private banks, and your Nifty. So comparison just as an illustration over the last 7 years is that a PPF is, let's say, giving a 7.8% return, which is again one of the good instruments because here the maturity is totally tax-free. National Savings Certificate is 7.8%. Senior citizen schemes, because senior citizens are given a higher interest rate both by the banks, by the government, is about 8.5%. Bank fixed deposits 6.9%, and Nifty has given over the last 7 years about 12.9% return. So This is about the mutual fund industry. So over here, if we look at it, the profile of the number of investors in the mutual fund industry, how many retail investors, they are contributing to almost 91% of the mutual fund investment accounts, and HNI is almost 8% and institutions just about 1%. So overall, there are about 13 crore accounts in the mutual fund industries. These could be multiple accounts for many of the people, and therefore this is not an indication of how many people have invested in the mutual funds, but almost 13 crore folios or accounts which are there in the mutual industry as on March 22. 91% of which are accounted by the retail investors, and HNI investors, they or HNI is people who are having more than 1 crore investments and above, so they are accounting for about 8%, and the rest 1% is only the institutional investors. Institutional investors also invest, say some of the large corporates, they invest in funds like ultra short-term liquid funds and very short liquidity funds, where they park their funds for a better return and a better investment tax efficiency. So these are also popular among the institutional investors. So this is an indication of a growth of INR 1 lakh rupees which has been invested in various instruments. All these instruments which I had just now spoken about. So a PPF in a 3-year period would have grown to about 1,28,000, and on the other hand, a Nifty would have grown to about 1,56,000. Similarly, over a 7-year period, the PPF would have grown to about 1,69,000. And a bank deposit would have grown to about 1,59,000, and the Nifty 50 index fund would have grown to about 2,33,000. So what are the ideal rate of return and the silent assassin, which is the inflation, which we need to overcome to have a real return, and how to create a long-term wealth, which is both long-term, which is tax efficient, which gives you liquidity, and which meets your short-term, long-term goals. So overall, if you look at the basic features of, let's say, equity or equity mutual fund investment, on an average over the years it can give, so here it is written between 14 to 16, it can give about anywhere between 10, 12 to about 16% return annual compounded. And the features are that you can invest any amount, there is a high liquidity, and there is a superior growth. The real estate can give you about 10 to 12% because of capital gains and because of some rental income, etc. So here the features are that it needs to have big amounts, very low liquidity, and there's a holding cost also involved. Inflation basically is a silent killer which kind of eats into your investments or your returns. The bonds or debentures, they are most inaccessible, mostly they are inaccessible to the retail investors, but debt mutual funds, they are liquid, they are, highly tax efficient. Any amount can be invested in a debt mutual fund, and these kind of funds are also giving about 8 to 9% deposits among the banks and some of the NBFCs and or some of the company deposits or corporate deposits. They are giving between 5 to 7.5%, and they are highly liquid, relatively stable, and interest rate is relatively stable, but the risk factors in some of the non-bank goes up, but the returns also go up. Insurance gives between 4 to 5% or max about 6% return. There again, the liquidity is low because once you get into an insurance plan or an income plan or of the insurance, then there is a fixed horizon before which if you withdraw, the surrender values are very high, and therefore the liquidity is low. And relatively the returns are poor, but yes, it gives you protection, it gives you the protection for your financial goals. And ideally, I would normally advise most of the people is that ideally they should get insurance to only cover through the term insurance. They should only be investing in insurance for the term cover or the for the risk cover, and they should not be used as saving instruments or investment instruments. So, but yes, of course, the insurance provides the maturity at 100% tax-free, this thing. So, there are some insurance products which are available currently. If you have no need for liquidity, then they are giving as high as around 6.5% returns, which are tax-free, which gives you effectively around 8.5% return. So, one can look at that as an investment or instrument also over the long term for creation of wealth. So how do the mutual funds work? Very, very basic question. Many of the investors, they come together collectively, they invest small amounts, and then the fund manager, he creates a portfolio, he invests in the securities or in debt instruments, depending on the mutual fund scheme or the objective of the scheme. And then these securities, they generate returns. So whatever these debt or equity securities or investments, they generate returns, and these returns are then passed back among the units which are there cumulatively and spread over all the investors. And there's a fund management fee or AMC fee which is collected by the fund manager or the mutual fund company, and rest of the return is all passed back. So the fee is a professional fee to manage the fund, to buy, sell, create the registrars and all those things, create a record and do the fund management, do a professional management. Buying and selling also involves costs. So all these things are done by the fund manager or the asset management company. So there are various benefits of investing in mutual funds. So there are professional investment management which is involved. Funds are managed by well qualified and experienced fund manager, and there are teams which are doing that. There are research houses which are providing a lot of research to these mutual fund teams to advise them on which stocks or which securities to be bought, when to be bought, when to be sold. And there are many fund managers who are going out and even meeting the insurance, the corporates and their CFOs and their promoters, trying to understand their goals, their business goals, their financial health, and all that stuff. So this work is entirely done by a well qualified professional team. So it also gives flexibility in terms of asset allocation. There are diverse fund choices which are allowed to you to invest in equity or debt, or appropriate asset allocation can be done. There's a well diversified security holding by the fund. So every investment, let's say even if you invest 5,000 rupees in a mutual fund scheme, that risk of yours is spread over say 40 scripts or 30 scripts. So let's say in 5,000 rupees you have bought let's say a portion of Reliance Industries, you have bought HDFC, you have bought ICICI Bank or SBI, and these kind of blue chip scripts. You are a part of all those 40 scripts, and you are owner of those 40 scripts, and therefore your portfolio is very well diversified. And it is highly regulated. Mutual funds are highly regulated segment, and it is regulated by SEBI, which is Securities and Exchange Board of India, and they are very strict, very, very stringent. There are regular audits and checks and balances which are already being done, which are always done. And there is a transparency, fund management information including portfolio, performance, NAV details, everything is regulated and monitored in a very, very transparent manner. So financial literacy is the ability to effectively manage a variety of financial skills. Now, this is again for financial planning. Why I have mentioned financial literacy over here is that you need to have the ability to effectively manage a variety of financial skills such as personal finance management, your budgeting, your investing. All these skills, they come through a financial literacy. So knowledge about financial instruments and financial services have recently become widespread among people of all economic backgrounds. So these days, financial literacy, there are various programs, there are various knowledge videos, there are so much of information available on the world wide net, web, and through the Google and all those YouTube, etc. You can find hordes and hordes of information on the financial instruments and financial planning, and thereby financial literacy is something which is an acquired skill, which is also a skill where the time, money, resources are required to be invested, and one can gain the skill over the years and over some time. And so financial literacy is one aspect which is very important for financial planning. So India's financial literacy rate among the young and adult population has been growing due to various factors, including recent advancement in technology and media coverage. Government of India and various regulators are constantly working towards implementing financial literacy courses, workshops, and schemes. From mobile banking to online payments and insurance, the country has. So here, one aspect, which I would like to mention over here is about the digital transaction and the ease of doing transactions. So now, as the technology has made inroads into various aspects of, financial services and financial products. So the knowledge about digital means or using of the digital instruments has been increasing. So from mobile banking to online payments to insurance, the country has a huge number of financial online financial services users, and therefore this skill to improve your financial literacy, along with the literacy, awareness about digital means and online means of investing is also required, because that makes life easy and that makes you much more agile, much more dynamic, much more quick to respond to your needs and requirements. So just to give you a fair idea, number of transactions with respect to digital payments in India has grown 5x from 1,000 crore in 2016-17 to almost 5,000 crores, almost 5 times it has grown in just about 5 years. And the value of fintech transactions, which is expected to rise, this is just talking about the future, at a CAGR of almost 20% to $138 billion in 23 from the current $66 billion in 2019. So you can imagine the kind of digital transactions which are happening, and we need to make use of digital transactions today. Most of the mutual fund schemes, most of the investment instruments, bank FDs are available on the digital at the click of a button. Mutual fund schemes are available at the click of a button. Insurance products, so many things, they are all available. And but yes, the prudence, the proper advisory has to be used before you get into financial planning tools, before you get into financial planning. So this is very, very critical. So I hope that all of you have gained from this session on the financial planning and its requirement in the to start early, and its requirement for all of us, for every one of us, and to gain from it and to take advantage of it. Thank you so much. Thanks a lot. Namaskar.